The last starship of the Galactic Coalition hung in the silent blackness above the green and blue world of Silva. It was a sharp, angular thing of dark metal, covered in the weapons and symbols of a dozen ancient species. It looked nothing like the gentle beings it was leaving behind. Down on the surface, Hannah felt the goodbye in the air. It wasn't a sound. It was a feeling, a shift in the quiet hum of the world. She was Alvari, her body slim and graceful like a young tree, her skin a soft pattern of greens and browns. Long, thin leaves, sensitive to light and emotion, traced the shape of her head. She stood in the middle of the crystal glade, where her people gathered. The air shimmered with their soft, sad light, a bioluminescent glow of pure despair. They were not built for this. They were builders of gardens, tenders of forests, communicators who shared thoughts through touch and light. They had no weapons. They had never needed them. High above, on the command deck of the Coalition ship Star Scythe, the decision was final. The virile swarm was coming. It was a tide of knowing metal and hungry, single-minded purpose. To fight here was to die. The strategic reports were clear. Sacrifice the border sectors. Save the core worlds. The Alvari colony on Silva was in a border sector. The math was simple. An officer, a tall being with gray, scaled skin, spoke without looking at the planet below. The sector is lost. All sentient assets have been retrieved. We depart. This was a lie. Hannah and thousands of her people were sentient. They were simply not considered important enough. As Star Scythe turned, a blue-white tear opened in the fabric of space before it. With a silent flash, it was gone. The sky, which had held a faint promise for days, was now just a star field. An empty one. In the quiet that followed, a different kind of light began to pulse from the Alvari in the glade. It was a deep, mournful violet. Hannah closed her large, dark eyes. She could feel the fear of her people, a thick, heavy wave of it. They were alone, not far from the crystal glade, in a small, dusty compound of prefabricated human buildings. Min heard the deep thrum of the Coalition ship's engines fade into nothing. He walked out of a storage hut, wiping his hands on a stained cloth. He was a solid man, his face plain and tired, his dark hair cut short for convenience. He wore a faded jumpsuit with a patch that said, Xenoterra Solutions, Engineer. He looked up. He knew what that silence meant. His company had been hired to install atmospheric stabilizers for the Alvari to help their new forests grow. The job was almost done when the evacuation orders came. His supervisor, a frantic man on a video call, had shouted, "Get to the port. The last shuttle leaves in 20 minutes." Min had packed his tools. He had started walking. Then he saw the Alvari children near the port, their leaf hair drooping, clinging to their parents. He saw the way the Coalition guards pushed them back, away from the ships reserved for priority species. He stopped walking. He watched the last shuttle, filled with important officials, and a few lucky others, lift off without him. He told himself his leg was hurt. He told himself he missed the time. But in his heart, he knew. He couldn't get on a ship that left children to die. Now he was officially stranded. His personal communicator buzzed once. A final message from Xenoterra Solutions flickered on the screen. Employee Min Jae. Kim is hereby noted as missing in action following the viral containment action in Sector Theta 7. Contract terminated. Benefits void. Containment action, Min muttered to the empty sky. That was a nice way to say, abandoned to die. He walked to the edge of his compound, looking toward the soft violet glow coming from the Alvari glade. He had worked with them for 6 months. They were quiet, curious, and kind. They had shared their water fruit with him. They had helped him calm a malfunctioning drill by simply placing their hands on it and humming. They were not soldiers. They were people, and the galaxy had just thrown them away. A soft rustle made him turn. Hannah stood a few meters away, her slender form pale in the twilight. She did not speak his language, and he did not speak hers. But the translation device on his belt, a small flat disk, activated with a soft chime. "The sky is empty." Hannah's translated voice came, soft and melodic, but flat with shock. "Yes," Min said. "They are not coming back." No, the violet light from her skin pulsed slowly. "The Vril will come. We have seen the data feeds. They consume. They do not communicate. We will try to speak to them, to show them our harmony." Min shook his head. He felt a strange, cold anger in his chest. Not at Hannah, but at the gray-scaled officers, at his company, at the whole calculating, cowardly galaxy. "They won't listen, Hannah. The Vril don't talk. They just eat. Then we will be eaten," she said, and the acceptance in her voice was the most terrible thing Min had ever heard. He looked at her, then at his junkyard of a compound. He saw his half-dismantled terraforming rig. He saw the spare parts, the laser cutters for slicing rock, the old electromagnetic survey probes. He saw the Alvari's own communication nodes, crystalline structures they grew that could send pulses of light and empathy across continents. A stupid, impossible idea began to form. It wasn't a plan for survival. Survival was impossible. It was a plan for a message. A very loud, very angry message. He knelt, picking up a handful of Silva's dark soil. "My people have a saying," he said, his voice low and rough. "If the mountain will not come to you, you must go to the mountain." Hannah tilted her head, the translation taking a moment. "We are the mountain?" "No," Min said, looking up at the stars where the Vril would soon appear. "The Vril are the mountain, and we are not going to them." He squeezed the dirt in his hand. "We are going to make that mountain regret ever moving in our direction." He stood up. "I need your help. I need your communication crystals. I need your people to watch the sky and tell me when the stars start to blink out." Hannah was silent for a long time, her light shifting from violet to a faint, questioning yellow. He was asking them not to wait for death, but to work for a hopeless cause. To fight, a concept so foreign to them. Finally, her light settled into a steady, determined blue. "To wait is to die alone," she said, the translated voice gaining a sliver of strength. "To act is to die together. We will bring the crystals. Show us what to do." As night fell completely, the first true night of their abandonment, two lights burned on Silva. One was the soft, collective glow of the Alvari, moving with purpose for the first time in days, carrying their beautiful, fragile technology toward the human compound. The other was the harsh, white work lamp from Min's hut. As he began to rip apart his machines, a look of grim focus on his face. Above them, unnoticed by either, a single star in the constellation, known as the Shield, winked out, as if something vast and dark had passed in front of it. Work began under Silva's two small moons. Min's compound, once a neat if dusty outpost, turned into a chaotic workshop. Olvari moved through the harsh human lighting like gentle shadows, carrying their crystalline communication nodes. The nodes were beautiful things, like large geodes of pure amethyst and clear quartz grown over decades. They hummed with a soft energy that made the air taste like ozone, and Rain.Min explained the plan in simple words, his translator disk clicking softly. "We cannot build a shield. We cannot build a cannon. But we can build a shout. A very big, painful shout." He showed Hannah a repurposed mining laser, its focusing array cracked. "This cuts rock. I can make it scatter light, wide and hot. It will not hurt a Vril ship, but it will be like a bright light in their eyes." He pointed to a stack of electromagnetic pulse generators used for geological surveys. These make a wave. It breaks small machines, stuns animals. To the Vril, it might be a loud noise in their ears. Henna understood. It was about disruption, not destruction. It was about creating confusion in an enemy that moved with perfect, terrible order. Her people began to help. Their long, delicate fingers were surprisingly strong and precise. They wove wires and placed crystals with an intuitive understanding of energy flows that Min's technical manuals never covered. The first test was a disaster. Min tried to link a pulse generator to an Olvari node. The node's gentle hum spiked into a shriek. The crystal cracked with a sound like breaking ice, and 3 Olvari nearby stumbled, their leaf hair wilting as if scorched. A wave of psychic feedback, sharp and full of alarm, washed over Min. It wasn't a thought. It was pure feeling, a sudden, blinding headache mixed with fear. Hana rushed to her people, placing her hands on their temples. A calming greenish light flowed from her. She looked at Min, not with anger, but with sudden understanding. Your machines speak one language. A language of on and off, of power and stop. Our crystals speak another. A language of feeling, of echo. They are not tools. They are. Alive in a small way. Min stared at the broken crystal, frustration boiling in him. Time was bleeding away. Every night, more stars vanished in the eastern sky, swallowed by the approaching Vril shadow. His grand idea was falling apart because of a simple incompatibility. He sat heavily on a crate. Then it is impossible. I am sorry I asked you to bring them. Hannah stood quietly for a moment. She then walked to one of the intact nodes. She placed her palms flat against its cool surface. It glowed from within, responding to her touch. You said we must make a shout, her translated voice said. A shout is not just sound from a mouth. It is air from lungs, force from a chest, feeling from a heart. It is all things working together, even if they are different. She looked at him, her dark eyes reflecting the work lamp. Do not make our crystals carry your machine shout. Let them shape it. Let them give it a voice that the void will feel. It was a leap of faith into technical madness. But Min had no other path. He nodded slowly. Okay, show me. They started again. This time, Hannah directed. Instead of wiring the crystals directly into the machines, the Olvari arranged them in a wide circle around the compound. They placed them in the soil, and Min saw thin, root-like filaments extend from the nodes, digging into the ground, connecting to each other in a silent, subterranean network. Min rebuilt his devices with a new goal. Not to control, but to trigger. He set up the mining laser to fire when a specific energy signature was detected, the signature of a Vril scout ship's drive. He connected the EMP generators to simple vibration sensors buried in the earth. The crystals will listen, Hana explained. They will feel the approach in the ground, in the air. They will feel your machines ready to speak. And they will translate the moment. They will take your flash of light and your wave of noise, and they will combine it. They will make it into one thing. It was a planetary mood ring hooked up to a fireworks show. Min thought it was the craziest thing he had ever heard. 3 days later, the Vril vanguard arrived. It was not the main swarm, but a single scout. It dropped from the black sky without a sound. It was shaped like a twisted thorn, black and shiny, absorbing the starlight. It moved toward the largest Olvari settlement, a place of glowing spires and deep forests. From the compound, Min watched it on a scanner screen, his heart hammering. Hannah stood beside him, perfectly still. All around the compound, the Olvari nodes began to glow a deep, warning red. The air vibrated with a low thrum. The scout ship passed over the edge of the settlement. Min's finger hovered over a manual override. This was it. His machines were armed. The crystals were charged. But would they work together? He didn't need to press the button. The network felt the Vol's cold, hungry presence. It was a feeling of wrongness that traveled through the root web in the soil and into the crystals. The nodes flashed from red to a blinding white dot in that instant. Two things happened at once that the jury-rigged mining laser fired. But it didn't release a coherent beam. The Alvari network, trying to translate the laser's intent into an empathic scream, scattered the energy into 1,000 frantic beams of searing, light that painted the underside of the Vril ship and the clouds above in chaotic, strobing patterns. At the same moment, the EMP generators discharged. The pulse was amplified and modulated by the crystal web, becoming a visible, rippling wave of distorted air that rolled upward. Not just an electronic burst, but a physical concussive thump of sound and pressure. The effect on the Vril Scout was immediate and bizarre. The ship didn't explode. It shuddered. Its smooth, silent flight broke into a jagged, wobbling dance. It veered sharply away from the settlement, its own lights flickering erratically. For a few seconds, it spun in a clumsy circle, like an insect hit by a spray of water, before regaining its stability. Then, with a speed that seemed almost like panic, it shot straight back up into the atmosphere and vanished. Silence returned, deeper than before. The crystals dimmed to a faint, exhausted blue. Smoke curled from the overloaded laser housing. Min let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He looked at Hannah. Did we hurt it? Hannah was trembling slightly. She had felt the network's effort, the painful strain of forcing machine logic and Olvari empathy into a single act. No, she said softly. We confused it. We shouted a word it has never heard. A word made of light and noise and fear. Our fear. It wasn't a victory. It was a stumble. A single scout was nothing. The real swarm would come, and it would not be confused for long. But as Min looked at the scorch marks on his equipment and the still glowing crystals, he felt something new, something he had not felt since the coalition ships left. It was not hope. It was the faint, stubborn spark of defiance. They had not just waited. They had answered back. And for now, that spark was enough to work by. He picked up a wrench. They heard us, he said. Next time, we need to scream. The confusion of the Vril Scout bought them 5 days. 5 days of frantic, desperate work. The single scout had been a probe, a fingertip testing the water. The main body of the swarm was the clenched fist, and it was now descending. Min and Hannah worked without rest. They moved their operation from the compound to a higher, rocky plateau. It gave a clearer view of the sky. More Olvari joined them, hundreds now, leaving their beautiful groves to huddle around the growing, ugly network of human scrap and Olvari crystal. The air was filled with the smell of hot metal, ozone, and the sweet, sad scent of Olvari stress. They built more emitters. They grew more nodes, though the new crystals were smaller, weaker, grown in days instead of decades. The network became a strange hybrid creature, a nervous system of roots and wires buried in the soil, with glowing crystal clusters and sharp, ugly machine parts breaking the surface like metal bones. Hannah's role changed. She was no longer just a helper. She became the link. Her natural sensitivity was the greatest of her people. She could stand in the center of the network, place her hands on the central node, a large, ancient crystal, now crisscrossed with conduits, and feel the entire system. She could feel the eager, dangerous hum of Min's overcharged plasma batteries. She could feel the tense readiness of the Olvari minds connected through the smaller nodes, their fear a constant, low vibration. And soon she could feel the VORL. It started as a pressure, a cold spot in the back of her mind. Then it grew into a noise, a silent, psychic screech of endless hunger. It made her leaves curl tight and her head pound. "They are here," she said, her voice thin. "Not in the sky, in the place between thoughts. They are singing a song of ending." Min looked up from welding a power relay. The sky was still clear, but he trusted her. He activated the final sequences. Across the plateau, lights on his makeshift control board switched from yellow to a steady, ominous red. "Then it's time to sing back," he said. "Are your people ready?" Hannah looked at the Olvari around her. They were terrified. Their light was a pale, flickering yellow. But they stood firm, their hands linked, their roots touching the soil, connecting to the network. They had chosen to meet the end this way, not hiding, but together. She nodded. "We are ready." The Vril did not arrive with a single ship. The sky darkened as a cloud of thorn-like vessels. Hundreds of them blotted out the sun. They moved in a perfect, horrible synchronization, a single organism with countless parts. They did not hail. They did not scan. They simply began to descend toward the planet's surface, toward the largest sources of life energy, the Olvari forests and this new, bright, annoying spark on the plateau. The network screamed a warning before Min's scanners did. Every crystal flared a violent, bloody crimson. The ground itself seemed to hum. "Now, Hannah!" Min yelled. He threw the master switch. His machines fired. Mining lasers, communication arrays turned into microwave projectors, and sonic disruptors all unleashed their energy. It was a storm of raw, chaotic power, aimed at the leading edge of the swarm. But it was not the storm that mattered. It was the shape Hannah gave it dot as the machine energy surged into the network. Hannah and her people did not try to control it. They did something else. They embraced it. They took the screaming, formless rage of the human machines and mixed it with their own profound, collective sorrow, the sorrow of a gentle people betrayed, abandoned, facing extinction. They wrapped it in the sharp, bright sting of their defiance. The crystals did not just amplify the energy. They transformed it. What shot up from the plateau was not a weapon. It was an emotion made physical. A wave of distorted reality, part electromagnetic blast, part psychic scream, part heartbreaking song. It hit the leading Vril ships. The perfect synchronization shattered. Ships collided. Two thorns scraped against each other in a shower of black fragments before spinning away. Others veered off course, their movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. The swarm's advance stuttered, like a video glitching. The psychic screech of hunger wavered, replaced for a moment by a burst of confused, discordant signals. But the Vril were ancient and adaptable. The swarm began to pulse, to reconfigure. The ships on the edges of the disruption moved to surround the plateau, trying to attack from angles the network couldn't cover. Energy beams, dark purple and silent, lanced down from the sky, carving smoking gouges in the rock. A blast hit near a cluster of Olvari. The crystal node exploded into shards. 6 Olvari fell, their light extinguished instantly. A wave of agony and loss ripped through the network, and through Hannah. She cried out, staggering, but kept her hands pressed to the central node. Min saw his machines failing. Power conduits melted. Emitters cracked under the strain. They had shouted their scream, and the Vril were already learning to block their ears. He fired a heavy welding laser mounted on a tripod, searing the hull of a low-flying thorn ship. It left a glowing scar, but the ship did not stop. "This is it." Min shouted over the rising noise of wind and distant explosions. "We can't hold them." Hannah knew he was right. The network was breaking. Her people were dying from the feedback of each blast, their minds overloaded. But she also felt something else. In its confusion, the Vril swarm had done something unusual. It had opened a channel of brief, frantic burst of communication between its own ships as it tried to understand the attack. The network, built around Olvari empathy and human signal tech, heard it. It was a complex mathematical signal, a song of coordination. And for a single perfect second, Hana understood its pattern. She made a choice. It would be their last. Min. She called, her voice clear and strong through the translator. Give it everything. All the power. Not to the sky. Into the network. Into the crystals. That will destroy them. It will destroy you. Min yelled back. Hana looked at him, her light shifting to a calm, pure white. Make the shout a final word. The loudest word this galaxy has ever heard. Min saw the resolve in her. He saw the falling Vril ships. He had no other move. With a roar of anger and grief, he slammed the emergency power core, the last battery, meant for a desperate escape that would never happen, into the main circuit. Raw, screaming energy flooded the network. The crystals glowed so brightly, they became white-hot, then transparent. Cracks like lightning raced across their surfaces. The Alvaray connected to them cried out as one. A sound of ultimate strain. Hana took it all, the last bit of human fury. The last song of Alvari sorrow, the dying light of her people, and she wrapped it around that brief, stolen pattern of the Vorl's own communication signal. She twisted them together into a single searing pulse of information and emotion. Then she released it. It was not a beam. It was an expanding sphere of light and distortion that shot out from the plateau. It blew out every remaining machine in a shower of sparks. It turned the Olvari crystals to clouds of fine, glowing dust. And it blasted upward, not just through the atmosphere, but through the Vol's own communication channels, a parasitic scream riding their frequency. For a moment, the entire Vril swarm around Silva froze, utterly silent and dark. Then, the pulse shot past them, out into the depths of space, carrying with it a chaotic data burst. Min's corporate ID tag, Olvari distress glyphs, and the raw, harmonic key to disrupting Vril coordination. On the plateau, the light died. The hum vanished. The silence was absolute, broken only by the moan of the wind. Min was on his knees, half blind, his equipment dead. All around him, Olvari lay still, their light dim or gone. Hana slowly slid down from the central node, which was now just a lump of darkened, fractured stone. She was alive, but her light was faint, a fading ember dot above them. The Vril swarm slowly, angrily, began to move again, closing in for the kill. They had won. The annoyance was silenced. But far, far away, in the quiet of a patrol route, on the bridge of a human ship called the Shu Sanagi, a comms officer named Sue jerked upright in her chair as her panel lit up with a screaming, impossible signal. The bridge of the Kusanagi was quiet, the way it always was on the long, boring patrols along the edge of Coalition space. Captain J sat in her command chair, reviewing supply lists. Pilot Tay hummed a tune softly as his hands danced over the navigation panel. At the weapons station, G was running a silent diagnostic on the railgun batteries. It was Sue at the communication station who broke the calm. "Captain," she said, her voice sharp, "I'm getting a signal. A very loud one." Jay looked up. "Source?" Sue's fingers moved quickly, her face lit by the blue glow of her screen. "It's broken. It's multiple signals jammed together. It's on a Vril carrier frequency, but it's not Vril." She put a hand to her ear, listening to the raw audio feed. Her face paled. "There's a human tag in the noise. A corporate ID. And it's full of pain." "Put it on speaker," Jay ordered. A horrible, beautiful sound filled the bridge. It was the screech of tearing metal, the wail of a dying forest, a deep hum of defiance, and underneath it all, a repeating digital ping. Kim, Minjae, Xenoterra Solutions, Silva Colony. The Silva Colony was abandoned, Tay said, turning from his station. Weeks ago. Sector Theta 7 was written off. It's a viral consumption zone. The signal is coming from there now, Sue insisted. And it's more than a tag. It's a data package. It has Olvari empathic glyphs, distress, and, Captain, it has viral harmonic data. It's a key. It shows a resonant frequency that disrupts their swarm synchronization. G let out a low whistle. Someone is fighting, and they just sent us the enemy's playbook. J stood up, her chair sliding back. Her heart was a hard drum in her chest. A human was down there, and they weren't just hiding. They were sending out intelligence with their last breath. Open a channel to Coalition Command. Send them the signal and request immediate instructions. The response from Command came back fast and cold. The voice of the Coalition liaison, a coldly logical being, crackled over the speaker. Kusanagi, you are to disregard the signal. Sector Theta 7 is under viral primary consumption. The signal is a ghost, likely a viral trick. Maintain your patrol route. Do not engage. That is a direct order. The channel closed. The bridge was silent again, but now the silence was heavy. J stared at the main view screen, at the serene starfield. She saw none of it. In her mind, she saw a man named Min, someone she would never know, on a green world, using scrap to send a final message. She saw Olvari, a people she had always thought gentle and weak, choosing to break their own hearts to send a weapon to the stars. They had been abandoned, but they had not abandoned their duty to each other, or to the galaxy that betrayed them. She turned to her crew. Tay, Sue, and G looked back at her. They were humans. They were the new kids in the galaxy, often ignored, sometimes mocked for their emotions, for their stubbornness. They knew the rules. J spoke, and her voice was quiet, but it filled the room. Coalition Command has ordered us to stand down. They have declared any life in that sector expendable. She paused, looking at each of them. But we have an older order, one written in blood on Earth, long before we ever saw the stars. We do not leave our own. A slow, hard smile touched G's lips. He turned back to his weapons console, his hands moving to activate systems. The railguns are thirsty, Captain. Tay cracked his knuckles and spun his chair toward the navigation panel. Plotting a slipspace jump into a blockade is going to be interesting. I'll need that viral harmonic data to find a soft spot. Sue was already working, her face set with determination. I am cleaning up the signal. I can isolate the distress call. I can make our response clear. Jay sat back down in her command chair. It felt different now. It felt right. Do it. Tay, get us to Silva. Sue, broadcast our arrival on the same frequency. Let them know. G, power everything. We are not going to win a war. We are going to make one hell of an entrance. The Kusanagi, a sleek vessel of gray human steel, turned away from its assigned path. Its engines glowed bright blue as Tay fed the chaotic viral harmonic data into his calculations. He found an instability, a fleeting weakness in the swarm's energy field around Silva. It was a tiny gap, closing fast. This is going to be rough, Tay said, his voice calm. Brace for impact. The ship shot forward. Space ripped open in front of it, not the clean blue tier of a coalition warp, but a jagged, violent rift. The Kusanagi plunged into the chaos. On Silva, the end had come. Min was propping Hana up against the broken central node. The sky was gone, replaced by the black, thorny underside of a viral mothership. It was a mountain of dark metal, covering the entire sky above the plateau. Smaller ships descended like falling knives. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and burnt crystal. Min had a heavy wrench in his hand. It was useless, but he would not die empty-handed. Hana's light was so faint it was almost gone. "It was a good shout," she whispered through the translator. "Yeah," Min said, his throat tight. "It was." He looked up, waiting for the final darkness. Then he saw it. High above the mothership, the sky itself seemed to crack. A jagged, painful-looking wound of blue-white light tore open. Something small and angular and fiercely bright fell through it, tumbling, trailing fire as it ripped through the atmosphere. A virile energy beam lanced up from the mothership, trying to hit it. The small ship twisted, evading with a crazy, unpredictable grace. Then a voice boomed from the sky. It was a human voice, female, sharp with static but clear. It echoed across the plateau, through Min's dead cums, from the speakers of the falling ship itself. It spoke in the common galactic tongue and in simple human English. "Attention, Viral Swarm. Attention, Silva Colony. This is the Earthship Kusanagi. You are not alone." Min's legs went weak. He dropped the wrench. He stared, uncomprehending. The small ship, the Kusanagi, righted itself. It was scarred and burning from its brutal entry, but it flew straight and true. It did not attack the mothership. Instead, it shot toward the plateau, placing itself directly between the falling virile knives in the ground, like a shield. "Repeat, humanity is here." On the bridge of the Kusanagi, alarm screamed. The ship shuddered as virile energy blasts hammered its shields. Jay held onto her chair, her eyes fixed on the view screen showing the scorched plateau and the two tiny figures below. "G, use the key. Hit them with that resonant frequency." Now G fired. It was not a missile or a laser. It was a focused burst of complex energy, shaped by the data Min and Hana had sent. It washed over the virile ships descending toward the plateau. The effect was instant. The ships did not explode. They shuddered and stalled, their precise formation collapsing into chaos. They wobbled in the air, crashing into each other. It was not destruction. It was the creation of a massive tangled traffic jam in the sky directly above the survivors. "We've stopped this group," G yelled, "but the mothership is retuning. We have minutes." Jay looked down at the planet. She had delivered her message. She had bought a moment. But one ship against a swarm was a story that ended only one way. She had known that when she jumped. She opened a channel, broadcasting on every frequency, pouring the Kusanagi's power into the signal, a signal aimed not at Silva, but at the rest of the galaxy, broadcasting the Silva distress call and all virile harmonic data on an open channel. Sue confirmed, her voice fierce. "Let the whole galaxy hear what they did. Let them hear what we did." Min heard the new hum in the air, a different kind of signal. He understood. The Kusanagi wasn't here to save them. It was here to be a witness, to make sure their final shout was not forgotten. He put a hand on Hana's shoulder. "Look," he said, his voice breaking. Someone came. Hana looked at the brave, burning human ship holding back the darkness, and she gathered the very last of her light, a soft, grateful gold, and let it shine. The Kusanagi was dying. On its bridge, lights flickered, and smoke curled from broken panels. The ship shuddered as another blast from the virile mothership grazed its shields. "We cannot take another direct hit," G reported, his voice flat. "Shields at 12%. Captain J held her chair. She watched the view screen. The tangled mess of virile ships above the plateau was starting to untangle. The mothership was emitting a new, correcting frequency. Their disruption was fading. In minutes, The swarm would be coordinated again, and the Kusanagi would be a floating coffin. She had done what she came to do. The open broadcast was still pouring into the galaxy, a live stream of their final stand. She hoped someone was listening. Down on the plateau, Min watched the brave little ship. He saw the flashes of impact along its hull. He knew what that meant. They had come all this way to die with him. The thought was too big to hold. Hana leaned against him, her faint gold light the only warmth left in the world. Then Sue's voice, tight with shock, came from the speaker on the ground, still linked to the Kusanagi's open channel. "Captain." Multiple slip-space signatures. Incoming. Dozens of them. Above the dying Kusanagi, the sky began to rip open. Not one tear, but many. Blue, white, and jagged orange rifts appeared in a great ring around the Vril mothership. From the first rift emerged a bulky, rust-colored freighter, its hull covered in rough weld marks. It was a mantis ship, from a species known as scavengers and traders, always looking for profit. But it moved without hesitation, positioning itself beside the Kusanagi, its old particle cannons glowing as they targeted the nearest Vril thorns. From another rift came a sleek, silver courier vessel, a Lizen craft. The Lizen were poets, historians, considered weak by the warrior species. It did not fire a weapon. Instead, it began broadcasting a powerful, calming frequency, a song of solidarity that further muddled the Vol's attempts to re-synchronize. More came. A mismatched squadron of mercenary fighters, species unknown, their ships a patchwork of different technologies. A single, beautiful solar sail ship from the ethereal Ore, who were thought to care only for art. A heavy mining barge from a tough, rocky species called the Gravix, its industrial cutters spinning to face the enemy. They were not an army. They were not organized. They were the forgotten, the marginalized, the ones the coalition had often overlooked. They had heard the Kusanagi's broadcast. They had heard Min's defiant shout, Hana's sorrowful song, and Jay's simple declaration, "Humanity is here." They heard, and they answered. The Vril mothership paused. Its analysis was swift. It had calculated the risk of one human ship. It had not calculated this. This was not a military formation. It was chaos. It was a galaxy's worth of stubborn, illogical refusal to accept the inevitable. The new arrivals did not attack the mothership. They did what the Kusanagi had done. They spread out, forming a messy, unbreakable thicket of ships around the plateau, around the Kusanagi. They fired not to destroy, but to disrupt, to confuse, to get in the way. They became a shield not of armor, but of sheer, inconvenient presence. The Vril swarm, for the first time in its recorded history, halted its advance. It hovered, the great mothership humming with recalculations. To consume this planet now would require fighting a battle of attrition against dozens of species, a battle with no strategic value. The math had changed. Slowly, then all at once, the Vril ships began to withdraw. They disengaged, turning away from the chaotic ring of defenders. The mothership itself powered its immense drives, moving back, away from the atmosphere, folding its smaller thorns back into its hull. It was not a retreat of defeat, but a strategic withdrawal. The cost had become too high for a single meal. On the plateau, the silence was overwhelming. The dreadful pressure was gone. The sky was filled with strange, beautiful, broken ships, all holding their position. The Kusanagi, limping and scarred, slowly descended, landing on a clear area of rock with a final tired groan. The ramp lowered. Captain J walked out, followed by Tay, Sue, and G. They were covered in soot, their uniforms torn. They carried medical kits, and water. Men, supporting Hana, stumbled toward them. He could not find words. Jay stopped in front of him. She looked at the exhausted human engineer, and the fading Olvari beside him. She saw the broken crystals and the burnt machines. She saw the story written on the ground. She simply nodded. We heard you. Medical teams from the other ships began to arrive on the plateau. Mantid medics with many arms worked on Olvari burns. Ore healers used light to soothe psychic trauma. Humans from the freighter helped Min sit and gave him water. In the days that followed, the story spread across the galactic networks. The Coalition's official statement was one of regret for lost communications and applause for unexpected interspecies cooperation. But no one listened to the official statement. They listened to the recording. They heard the abandonment. They heard the shout. They heard the stand. On Silva, a new structure was built. It was not a military base. It was a meeting hall grown from Olvari crystal and shaped with human and Gravix metal. In its center stood two things: the burnt-out power core from Min's machine and the shattered central node from Hannah's network. Placed side by side at the first gathering, representatives from all the species who had come stood together. There were no grand speeches. Hannah, her light still soft but steady, spoke through her translator. We learned a new word from humanity. It is stand. It does not mean to be tall alone. It means to choose a place and to hold it together. Min stood beside her, and we learned a word from the Olvari. It is harmony. It is not about being the same. It is about different notes making a stronger song. The alliance that formed that day had no official name. The Galactic Coalition watched, uncertain. They saw no new weapons, no demands for territory. They saw only a simple, dangerous idea taking root, symbolized by the two broken objects in the crystal hall, that no life was expendable, and that no one would be abandoned again. It began not with a treaty, but with a shout from a doomed world. A shout that became a song, answered by a chorus the galaxy never knew it had. And at its heart were two people, a stubborn engineer and a gentle caretaker, who had taught the stars the power of standing together.